Most interesting changes that took place in 7.22. Let's just start with the apps feature. Each app can now join a specific VLAN in your network using the PVID field, and now there is also a YAML tab. And if you're at a point where you're editing the YAML files, why not just create your own custom apps by clicking the New button and filling out all the details manually. If you're in a bigger organization where you might want to share your custom apps with others, you'll like the new Settings field where you can add your self-hosted app store URLs. Creating an app store is as simple as hosting a list of custom YAML file configs. Another useful addition to the app functionality is the ability to create your own swap files to address any memory shortages. You could just create an empty file and then add it to the disk section specifying the size. Just make sure you set the SMB sharing and media sharing to no. But even if you don't do it, all the devices that use the apps feature will create swap files automatically on the fly, preventing running out of memory. These files will be created in the storage location you have devoted to apps. If for some reason you need to reset your device but keep your apps at the same time, you can now set the Keep Apps flag to yes when resetting. Then if you start running a bunch of apps on your router, you might decide that you want your router to act as a reverse proxy. We now have this feature as well. Just keep in mind that it will need to use port 443, which could conflict with the WWSSL service for our web interface. To add a new reverse proxy, simply enter the SNI, the IP address of your app or server in your local network, along with the port it listens on. And then you will want to add a certificate for your web page as well. There were a couple of improvements to help you work with certificates, but the important one is that you can now add multiple Acme servers. Just click the Add Acme button on the right side and fill out all the details to have an automatically renewing TLS certificate. A thing that bothers many people is the need to change device mode to enable advanced features such as containers, particularly if they have to configure a large number of devices. So from now on, if you are using FlashFig or Netinstall in your device setup, you can now apply another kind of script called mode script. It can be a simple RouterOS configuration script, but the difference here is that it gets applied before a reboot is performed, and any changes made are not stored in the default configuration. So in short, you can enable advanced features in the mode script and then begin using them in the regular configuration script. When it comes to the RouterOS console, there have been several small improvements. But to me, the most significant one is the fix of an ancient bug regarding interface link down and link up times. If you have ever monitored a large number of RouterOS devices using scripts, you might have encountered a rare situation where those interface link timestamps change by 1 second without there being any link changes. When I first encountered it, it was driving me mad. My script would take a reading of the interface details every 5 seconds, and occasionally on some random interface the link timestamps would just start to flicker up and down by 1 second indefinitely, until you reestablish the link and override those cursed flickering timestamps. The time wasn't drifting anywhere, it was just flickering between two time measurements. And the odds of this happening when you re-establish the link were very low, maybe even less than 1%. So it was a very minor issue of very low priority and very annoying regardless. Eventually, it turned out that the actual timestamp stored in the flash memory does not change. It is only the information displayed to the user that changes. When you think about it, it all makes sense. Routers don't have a real-time clock, because that would require a battery that keeps the clock running when there is a power outage. So what our devices have to do instead is to simply count the time starting from the boot up and then work out the exact timestamps later using the information they get from either the network time protocol or the MikroTik cloud. In this case, it meant that the human-readable link down and link up times were getting recalculated every time the user takes a reading. So occasionally a funny situation could occur, where the running time could affect whether the timestamp is being rounded up or down by 1 second. Starting version 7.22, this should finally be fixed. If you still encounter it, you'd better let me know in the comments. Other interesting console improvements include new script commands, exit to terminate your script, and the common continue and break commands for working with loops. Then when you're writing long lines of commands, you'll appreciate the new hotkeys. Ctrl+W deletes the last word, and Ctrl+arrow keys let you navigate back and forth by whole words. If you're more experienced with RouterOS, you might know that we have these special .id identifiers, and they have their own data type where the value starts with a star. But if you look closely, they're just hex numbers, and now you can compare them in your scripts using relational operators, just like you could compare numerical values. When it comes to logging, it is now possible to clear any unneeded echo logs. A new logging action is available called script, which is pretty cool, as you can now set up a log filter for a specific event and have it initiate a script. Other various changes that have happened. Mac Telnet can now target specific interfaces instead of just broadcasting everywhere. You can potentially improve the performance of your SSDs with the new disk trim command, which works similarly to Linux fstrim. The ROS storage package now adds support for the XFS file system type. Bridges now have an RA guard feature, and MLAG has been moved to a separate tab. The MLAG peers will also synchronize their MAC addresses properly. Interface Wi-Fi now has a new section called Simply Network. The idea here is to make Wi-Fi configuration simple and intuitive. Currently, you can type in the SSID and a passphrase as the bare minimum. Your unconfigured Wi-Fi interfaces will then hand over control to the new feature, although you might still have to execute the radio provision command. In the future, this could turn into an intuitive GUI feature for average home users who don't want to work their way through a sea of Wi-Fi settings whenever they want to set up an access point. Finally, for the hardcore MikroTik fans, BGP news. We now have the BGP unnumbered feature, which means you don't necessarily have to do static BGP peer configuration. You can also discover them dynamically using IPv6 RAs. BGP instances now have a multipath setting, which enables eCMP routes and allows you to specify how many routes you would like to use at the same time. You can use it together with the connection input-output add path setting. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.